Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I'm back with a new layout for Pinkfresh Studio, and I made this page as part of the 2020 August challenge, and the theme is florals, and the color scheme matches the new Celebrate collection. And this was the one that came out several weeks ago with Altenew. So Pinkfresh and Altenew collaborated, and if you look through the papers and embellishments, you can see characteristics of both companies combined into one. And I just think the florals and the colors in this collection are really pretty. And I have this cute picture of my daughter that I printed in color. I thought that it would be a nice photo to match these flowers on this paper. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to cut these out, and I at first cut them as one big floral cluster, but I wind up cutting a couple of them separate because I wanted to move them into a different spot. So you can kind of see there what I'm talking about. So I have all of this cut out, and since they're pretty big, they're going to take up a big chunk of the background. And so I just wanted to start to play around with the placement and see how I wanted this to go. And I like how that looks. I wanted to incorporate this paper. I've been having trouble figuring out what to do with this paper. And since there is a yellow flower in the cluster there, I thought I would pull more of the yellow. Since there's so much coral and pink tones, I thought I would play on the lesser used color. So this winds up changing, but I just wanted to give it a try. So I tore a chunk off of that dotted paper and thought I might use that in the background as a base. And I put it, vertically. I try it horizontally, and it's not bad, but I'm not loving it. Yeah, so that was me tapping my fingers thinking, do I like this? I don't know. So I got out the die cuts and just started to kind of sift through everything, see what I might want to add, if I wanted to add more flowers or what. This is kind of the what am I going to do phase of the page. And so a lot of thinking going on here, a lot of trial and error. So I decided to take off the yellow sheet and just start with the background. And I'm using white, thick, smooth cardstock here. I think this is white thick. It might be textured. You know what? I think it is textured because I'm going to be using the ink pads on the background. And when I use the ink pads on the background, I like to use textured cardstock because you can see the texture at the end when everything is dry. The texture from the cardstock shows up really, really neat. So I like that. That was just clear gesso that I covered the paper with to prep it for everything. And so I pulled out some of the ink pads. These are the little mini ink cubes from Pinkfresh, and I've become obsessed with using them on my backgrounds lately. Several layouts I have used them to stamp, and in this one I'm gonna just smudge them right onto the background. And I've picked out 4 colors here that match the flowers. And this first color is called Peach Fuzz, and all I did was scrape it down. I'm using my empty water brush because that was my empty one. I have to get my full one. I grabbed the wrong one, but I'll find it here in a minute. So I'm just activating the color with a little bit of water. And I love how that instantly turns the ink into watercolor. And the gesso is key here for this technique, because if you scrub this ink pad right onto plain paper, it's going to instantly, dry, and it's going to look exactly like it does. It's not going to activate like this and blend if you don't use gesso for this technique. The 2 pink colors that I put up top, the light one is Ballet Slipper, and then the darker or the brighter color one is Sparkling Rose. I'm going to wind up adding in some Coral Reef right there. Beautiful coral color. And yeah, these were just the 4 colors that sort of jumped out at me to match these colors. So I kind of put everything back, see how it looks, and I'm just going to keep going. I actually spend quite a bit of time. This is another layout where the background takes a journey. So buckle up if you are going to hang around to watch what happens with this background, because I had to really work at it. Because what I found when I do this technique, and this happens with all kinds of products, but when I use gesso and activate some of the inks with water, they tend to change color sometimes. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the gesso. Because when you stamp directly onto paper that has not got gesso on it, the colors are true to what's on the ink pad. But for some reason, several of the colors decide to change a little bit as I go here. And the pink is one of them. I believe it's the darker pink. Whenever I go to dab it up and it dries a little bit, it's almost like fluorescent. So it's way too bright. So I had to keep working at it. And I like how it's looking. I just keep adding layers. Sometimes if I let it dry by itself, it looks a little bit different. If I dab it up, it looks a little bit different. So every little thing that you do affects what it looks like when it's dry. And this is okay so far. So I'm not loving it yet. So what I thought I would do is add some stamping. So I pulled out one of the stamps that comes from this collection. This stamp set is called Celebrate Us, and it has this really big floral cluster that you'll see here as I stamp it. And I'm going to use these same colors, and I thought that I would just stamp some flowers on the background, kind of like a subtle detail. Now what I found was that when I stamped these images onto the background that I have already added water to, they did not really want to blend anymore. It was interesting. I don't think I've tried to stamp on top of, see what I'm talking about here? It really didn't smudge. It stayed, most of it stayed the shape that it was. So it's like I got, one chance there. So once I did the background in that area, the stamp is not going to smudge. Now, if I would have stamped the flower first and used the water, it would have ran and blended. But since I've already treated the background and it's dried some, the ink is just drying. And I just found that very interesting. And let's be honest, most of these stamped flowers are going to get covered up. Kind of see here what I'm talking about. See, it's not blending or smudging. They're kind of staying the way they are. And I'm adding water. Water is coming out of that brush. So it's like, yeah, they're going to stay the way they are. And that's fine because I wanted them to look like flowers, but most of it gets covered up. And I didn't love the way that looked either. So it's okay that it gets covered up. I decided to take a break from the background and let's add some more flowers. So I pulled out this pattern paper that's got black and white flowers and leaves and then this kind of smudge of color. So the colors that are on these flowers are really abstract and I thought that was really cool. So I cut out a couple of the yellow ones because again I wanted to pull more yellow from this since there's so much pink and coral going on. And I liked this one here because of this bright pink color. So I thought since we had one big pink flower that I needed another pop of that pink somewhere else. So I cut a couple of flowers. I'm going to put one over to the right of the photo. I'm going to come back to the background, but for now I'm just going to start to work on building everything else. So I'm going to add a little bit of tissue paper behind my picture there. Add some adhesive foam behind it to pop it up off the page and continue to work. I found this scrap from the one other layout that I made back when we did the release blog hop, and I found these little leaf stems that I had not thrown away because they were on a scrap. I thought, you know what, I'm going to cut those out and add some more leaves to this big floral cluster. And I like how the flowers are kind of creating an arc, almost like a C shape to kind of close in around the photo, and it just helps to draw your eye to the picture. And I like the placement of the picture. It's not center, it's a little bit to the right because her head, even though she's looking straight on, her head is tilted a little bit to the left. So I wanted there to be more space on the photo. I'm not on the photo, more space to the left of the photo to kind of where she has room to look across the page. And you kind of follow her eyes to see what she's looking at. She's looking at the flowers, right? Okay, so we're going to come back to the background now. And this time I decided to add in some of the liquid watercolors. And these are all from Pinkfresh Studio. And I finally discovered what was missing. I felt like the yellow, well, actually I wasn't using a yellow ink. It was the peach fuzz. And that's actually a light peachy orange color. But the yellow, I keep saying yellow, but the yellow flower in that cluster is not a true yellow. It's more of an orangey golden yellow. So I thought, well, let me come back in with the watercolors, and I'm mixing the orange and the yellow, and this turns out a lot better. I feel like the color is a little bit better because yeah, the ink pads, they matched, but like I said, when they react with gesso and water, they tended to change color, and so it didn't wind up matching like I would hope. So that's why I decided to bring in the watercolors, and I feel like this color is we're getting there, but we're not done. We're not done. Like I said, this is another background crazy thing here. Okay, so what am I doing? What's happening now? Yeah, we're adding in some pink. Yeah, it winds up being okay. That big pink chunk, that's covered up by the photo, so don't worry about that part. Yeah, these colors don't match the flowers at all. So I'm trying to blend, and I'm able to dab some of this up if it's not what I want, because the gesso is on the paper and it's not soaking right through, but I am adding quite a bit of water, you know, and this is just plain old cardstock, so I have to be careful. You can kind of see there when I dab things up, you see that it's a light pink, but it's almost like a light fluorescent color. It's not the color that I'm going for. So I'm going to keep working at it. And this is, to me, it's, I don't want to call it stressful, but it's more on the, it's fun because I'm trying to see what works and what doesn't work. And when I mix and match different products together, you get different results. And so that's kind of, this is just an experiment, you know, and it had frustrating moments where I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get this background done? But at the same time, it was fun to do because I just kept going and I never knew what result I was going to get. Oh, here I am adding brown. I've never used the brown watercolor. Oh, this is looking like a disaster. I know. You don't have to say it. I know. It's going to be okay. I'm trying to get a deeper orangey color to blend with the yellow that's already on there. And it's going to look different once the flowers come back on. The background by itself, go ahead and say it, looks like a hot mess, looks like a disaster, but it's coming together. I'm liking how it's looking piece by piece. Oh man, sometimes these backgrounds, sometimes they come together fast. Like the first time, it doesn't take me long at all. I'm like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. This background is done. And then a layout like this, I don't know. I think it's just a different color that I'm used to creating or used to using. Another issue I ran into is when I would dab up parts of the paint here, I would get like this ultra bright yellow color. And I don't know if that was from the watercolors kind of mixing with the ink or what, but I had to work to kind of hide that because I didn't want bright sunny yellow on this page because nothing is bright sunny yellow. It's more of that dark goldeny hint of orange yellow. So I keep working. You can kind of see her on the left edge there where it's really like a lighter bright yellow. All right, that's me going, ugh, take a break from this background. So I'm going to let that dry. And now we're going to just work on something else. We're going to pop up the cut file using some adhesive foam. I do this a lot. I love this adhesive foam. I get it at Walmart. Usually it's in the craft section. It's in a pack of 40 sheets. They're 5x7 sheets and they're, I think, $5. I love that stuff. Okay, let's see what we got so far. I think we're done with the background at this point. I like how it looks. And you can see now that with everything back on top of it and just the way you can see it around and in between the cluster, it has a whole different effect to it. I'm adding a paper layer behind the picture there, and I like that torn edge on the side. I think that gives that a little uneven, imperfect look. I think that's why I like torn edges and things crooked a lot, is because you know, my backgrounds are always kind of messy and crooked and chaotic, and I think the torn edges just kind of enhance that whole effect, as well as the thread, and that's what I'm adding in now. I'm adding in some yellow thread, again, to kind of pull in that deeper yellow color. And this isn't bright sunny yellow, it's more of a golden yellow. But yeah, the more you do things crooked or create a background or things that are imperfect, to me, the better it is, because you don't have to measure as much. And I mean, I do measure sometimes. Sometimes I want things perfectly straight. But when it comes to, you know, layers like this, just tear the edge, you know. Oh, there's Paige. She's saying hi. You can see her wild hair there in the bottom. But yeah, I like to tear things. I like it to look a little uneven, and like, you know, I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I just tore this paper, and that's how it wound up. And I like how, you know, even though I put a lot of time and effort into the background, it still looks like, oh, she just slapped some paint down and it looks okay. But you see here what the backgrounds go through sometimes. They are a struggle to get sometimes, even though they look just like a big old mess. And in a sense, that's really what I was doing, was making a big old mess. But now that it's done and I'm gluing everything down, I really love how it looks. I think the colors turned out okay, and it was fun and interesting, like I said, to kind of play with the different products, because you never know how they're going to react together and what new colors you may come up with. And sometimes they blend together perfectly, and other times it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that color. Here's another die from Pinkfresh Studio. This is not in the collection, but you can get this in the store. It's called You. And it's just the word you, and it's perfect for a title. So I'm cutting it on my manual die cutting machine there on white cardstock. I'm cutting it twice. I thought I was going to offset it to make it look a little thicker, but I didn't like how that looked. So I'm just going to glue these two together to make it a little bit thicker, because there's no way I'm going to put adhesive foam behind that. It's too thin and too dainty. So I'm just going to lightly glue it to the bottom of the picture there. And I decided on white because I felt like there's plenty of pink and plenty of coral, and I just thought that the white was the best choice. These are some other little stamps I'm going to use here from the other stamp set that comes with Celebrate, and it's called Celebrate Today. The other one is Celebrate Us, where the flower stamp I used came from. This one has another big floral cluster, but it also has several words and sentiments. And so I'm going to use a couple of those. That one down there at the bottom says Right Now. And then the one at the top is going to say Everyday Moments. I'm getting braver and braver about stamping directly onto my backgrounds. I've been lucky so far. I know there's going to come a time where I'm going to jack it all up and it's going to look messy. I added some orangey yellow thread over there to the right on that little cluster. I wanted just a small cluster to the right of the photo there, not anything big, since the big stuff is to the left. Last thing I'm going to do is bring out my ruler. Now this is something I definitely want straight, my journaling lines. So I'm going to add that in and then use my black fine tip Sharpie. Actually, I have to get a new one because I went to use this one and no ink came out of it, so I had to go digging for another one. But I got it all done. I added the date, and that's how this turned out. You would never know that I struggled getting the background just so, but I really like how it turns out. I like that it brings the yellow out of everything, you know. I felt like when there's so much of a certain color family, you know, use a different color to bring those colors out. And so I felt like the yellow was the best way to go on this, because I didn't want it to be pink overkill. But anyway, I hope you learned something from this. I hope you got some ideas or some inspiration for your next project, or what not to do maybe, or an idea to try, you know. Ink pads, mix them up with your watercolors, see what you can come up with. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you join the challenge. I'll link it down below, and you could win a gift card. So definitely join us and do that. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.